So I was born with a very rare medical condition where all of my internal organs are on the wrong side of my body. So it's a mirror image. So if your heart's on the right, on the left, mine's on the right. So every single organ, and
Wow.
so it leads to me living my life in a little bit of a different way because there are some unique health concerns that go along with that.
When you're at like a football game or a baseball game and you have to, the national anthem comes on, like, do people look at you weird because your hand's in the wrong place? There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. You know, people always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs in Finance. I'm Kris Roglieri, President and CEO of Commercial Capital Training Group. On this episode, we're doing things a little differently. I'm actually interviewing one of our employees that has very critical roles here, both at Commercial Capital Training Group and Prime Commercial Lending. And I think it'll be a good idea to get a perspective from one of our lenders. So those of you that don't know, or if you do know, out of the 50 lenders you get with Commercial Capital Training Group, I actually own one of the lending institutions. I used to own 2, but now I own one, and that company's Prime Commercial Lending. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Gary Lockwood of Prime Commercial Lending. Hey, Gary.
Good afternoon, Kris. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, yeah, not that you had a choice, right? So this has to be kind of a little awkward for you, right? Because you're literally around the corner in the office, and I'm in our conference room here.
You know, we're social distancing rules, but yes, I can kind of almost see the conference room from where I am right now. So
that's true. That's true. Well, so tell me about your role in the organizations that we have here. As you know, everybody that works here kind of sometimes has dual roles in our organizations. You're a prime example of that, both how you serve the graduates with CCTG and also your role in Prime Commercial Lending. So if you want to start off with that.
Sure. So on the Commercial Capital Training Group side, I'm part of the support team. So on a monthly basis, I'm coming up and actually talking directly with the graduates when they're in-house, on the phone or, virtually, as we've been doing the virtual classes the past couple of months, and really educating them on the Prime Commercial Lending Working Capital Program, which we can go into a little bit more detail, but that's the primary function of my support when it comes to the Commercial Capital Training Group, and really helping support the graduates as they exit the program, and really help to educate them from beginning to end, from an educational perspective, from a support perspective, and actually from a closing perspective, to help the graduates be comfortable with this product, which is an in-house product, right?
Right.
Which we'll go into, and really just show them why this is a very good product that they can get out there. And really, this program helps a lot of our brokers build confidence when they get out, because it's one of the easier programs to really get into the marketplace.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I think I refer to it in training as one of the paying the bills products. It's the quickest way, one of the quickest products to cash flow, as I say. And listen, I'm not trying to butter you up here, but I think one of the reasons why I thought it was a good marriage of you being here, and you believed in us, and you took the role on when we approached you, is your unique upbringing in the industry. Because I know at some point in your career you were a lender, at some point you worked for a lender, at some point in your career you were a broker, and to me that was tremendous value add to the graduates that come here each and every month. So if you want to just explain to me your upbringing in the industry, I think that would be helpful for the viewership.
Absolutely. And let me say the ability to work with the graduates is really kind of the best part of is really what kind of attracted me to the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I've been good enough, and it's been a good relationship where we've worked together for a couple of years, and was very happy to join the organization earlier this year. I'll go back a little bit about, I was a commercial banker in New York City for about 10 years. So I've been in commercial finance for 20 years, the first 10 of that as a commercial banker in New York City. And frankly, my leaving commercial banking was not of my own doing. It was right in the middle of the recession in 2008, right? And even though I was doing very well, I got up to middle market banking. They just, there were 16 of us at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, there was 12 of us. They were nice enough to tell us, hey, you don't have to come to work for the next 3 months. We'll pay you, but after that, you're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
So, it was a little bit of a shakeup, but, as I got out, what was interesting is I had built-in business because so many of my people that, I was working with
Mm-hmm.
were in the middle of commercial transactions that could not get done. So I came into being a broker right as the recession started, working primarily on working capital and equipment financing programs. So I've, as you said, I've spent an equal amount of time over the past 10 years as a broker and as a funder. And like I said, I think that gives me a good, unique perspective to look at it both from the broker's perspective as they come out
Mm-hmm.
and as a lender's perspective through Prime, to be able to put the two together and really offer some best practices
Right.
for the brokers as they get out, right? So, spending time as a broker was good. It gave me a lot. I learned a lot by being a broker. I had 3 broker offices, one in upstate New York, one in New York City, and one in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot, but I learned a lot about how to deal with lenders on a very professional basis. Like, if you can get credibility, the ability for you to be able to get credibility with your lenders in this industry is everything.
Right.
And I've said this before, but that is the thing that took me the longest, years
Right.
to get credibility with lenders.
Right.
And the brokers come out with that.
Sure. And so here you were, a career banker. There's a shakeup in '08, which, if I could name every banker that lost a job in '08, I'd have an island somewhere. But
We're going to start a
um,
support group sometime, right?
yeah, absolutely, like an AA meeting or something, right? And everybody has the scars to prove it.
Yeah.
Luckily, here at Prime, when that happened, we were diversified, right? So my own financing firm was diversified, which really was the basis of CCTG in terms of learning a diversified model. But listen, I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about you. So what happened was you suddenly got thrown into the brokerage world, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah.
And it sounded like you got a couple offices up and running. But correct me if I'm wrong, you only really did one vertical, which
was
ultimately your downfall in having a brokerage company. Is that correct? Because you only do like 1 or 2 things.
I mean, that is absolutely correct. That was one of my downfalls. It served me well in the beginning because it allowed me to generate income pretty quickly.
Right.
But also, it did not allow me to be, I was really just, just concentrating on that one program, a quick working capital program.
Right.
And, I was singularly focused on that. Right. But what was happening is I was losing other opportunities to other broker groups that knew how to do what I did. But when it came time for commercial real estate, when it came time for equipment finance, I couldn't serve that need. I was losing customers to those places who were able to offer what I was able to offer as well, but be more well-rounded. And like you said, and have customers on an ongoing basis. They were able to fulfill their needs, and I was only able to fulfill one.
Right. And which is why, when we do our classes every month, there's a portion of that class, maybe 2 or 3 brokers that are already in the business, but they come here to learn diversification. And I think brokers that only do 1 or 2 things now don't get that until it comes time to get it, and it's usually too late. Right.
Well, this is a perfect example. The past couple of months, right? The bottom fell out of a lot of different types of financing out there, and the ability, Prime Commercial Capital Training had the ability to pivot and offer our brokers the ability to process PPP loans,
right?
While when other resources dried up and they weren't able to lend. So yes, it gave them some revenue,
right?
Like I said before, it wasn't a huge profit center, it gave them some revenue, but what it did is it opened them up to a whole different set of customers out there.
Sure.
Gave them the ability to retain the customers that they had, right? And it gave them a little bit of a different revenue stream. And the people who are coming out of that now are people who they can use to be able to use the different types of lenders that Prime and CCTG were able to expose our brokers to as they came out of it. So, like you said, being one, only being singularly focused is not helping any brokers out there right now. And I think the current economic conditions, over the past couple of months have really proved that out.
And I think it's forced brokers to rethink their business models that were singular in terms of product focus.
Yeah.
And now that the PPP loans have been exhausted for the most part, I think brokers are sitting back going, "Wow, if I didn't somehow adjust my model to focus on that," and a lot of brokers didn't even know about it. They didn't even know how to get involved. They didn't know the lenders that were offering it, and more importantly, paying commissions. I think it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. The fortunate ones that were able to adjust, it's a lesson, because as brokers get into this industry, I think the majority of them learned a lesson doing COVID, because, if they were around long enough to remember '08, they remember '08. But for all the new people since '08, they don't really remember a downturn that kind of shook up the industry where they had to adjust and kind of go where the opportunity is.
You're right. Our industry's been on almost a consistent upswing for the past 10 years. You don't get very many runs like that. And as a banker, I went through 2001 working as a banker in Manhattan. So that was the ultimate shakeup. Where we were processing
the year later after 9/11, right?
Yeah. And so in 2001, so after that, and also going through the 2008 recession. So you learn how to be resilient. So hopefully, like you said, a lot of our brokers that went through this are more uniquely qualified to address the needs of the marketplace for their customers on an ongoing basis. Mm-hmm. And for those who didn't, hopefully it's an opportunity for them to say, hey, listen, we need to be able to connect with other providers of capital, which is where I think, honestly, we serve a big hole in the marketplace to be able to work with those brokers out there who aren't comfortable, processing other types of transactions.
Right. And, I don't want to turn this episode into a commercial for Prime Commercial Lending, but I think it's worth noting that, we are one out of the 50 plus lenders that graduates walk away with. But I think people find working with, the deals we fund directly, there's like a comforting feeling with that, right? Because people tend to do business with people they like. And we like to think we do a great job on the training side. And so, your perspective in working and educating the grads on the product that we do, right? So we do commercial real estate financing and the merchant cash advance business. And the real estate financing division is another person who handles that. But you represent the working capital side of what we fund directly. So, tell me about how important just the working capital merchant cash advance product fits well with guys just coming out of the training, right? Tell me about that from your perspective.
Right. From my perspective, like I said, this is one of the products. I like to refer to this, like I said it before, as an instant liquidity product, right? So You can go into your local marketplace. You can go anywhere really and sell this, but even into your local marketplace right now. And I think right now this program is really as important, if not more important, than it's really ever been. Right. Because a lot of people, are brokers who are coming out of this training right now. Like I said, this processing these transactions, especially with our expertise and our best practices, helping them show the best way to get these done, it gives them more confidence to work on other different transactions that might be a little bit more complicated. So this is a good product to start to go out there with, because this is one of the unique products in the marketplace where you can submit a deal, get it approved, get it funded, and get yourself paid all within about a week's time.
And sometimes sooner. It just depends on how many, if the borrower is, on top with getting things back and the execution of documents, et cetera.
Yeah. And we're turning around approvals in 4 to 6 hours. So if you can have somebody submit an application 11 a.m. and tell them by 5 p.m., hey, you're approved for $100,000. Guess what? We can have that in your account in 2 days. The speed and availability of this product really mitigates a lot of other things that are out there. So That's what I say, like you said, with people going out there. And I just want everybody to know that we are here to help get these transactions done. We're here to help make sure that you understand how to talk about these products in the marketplace, how best to present them, all of those different things. But I think this is and I think why it's really important right now, a lot of people were financed through the government to help protect their employees, right? They're able to retain their employees.
The PPP program.
Yeah. Right. And as they come out right now, there's going to be a need for working capital, because these customers are going to, a lot of the clients out there are going to have to adjust to a new business model, right? So before, they may have taken money to address a new business model now, but when you talk to other lenders out there, and I like talking to other lenders out there, they're looking for a better online presence from their customers. If it's going to be food service, they want to see a better takeout and delivery. They want to make sure that people have a different business plan to address if there's going to be, an additional economic downturn, due to the same thing. So, our product provides a very good financing opportunity for those who have taken advantage of these lower no-cost government programs out there. And we've seen that this summer.
Right. And I think we've seen also from our portfolio that a lot of people who received the PPP money, right, that maintained them for that time being. And now that things are kind of adjusting to a new normal, I see businesses now needing capital. The PPP money has run out, right? And so now they need capital to, survive, maintain, and also grow in a lot of industries, right? Just like you said, and as this pandemic kind of, adjusts to a new normal, I think we're going to see certain industries explode in a good way, right? And other industries change for the better, or however you want to call it. But for instance, restaurants, like you said, a lot of restaurants now are forced to kind of adjust things so they could do takeout. I mean, we're seeing 4- and 5-star restaurants that didn't even have a takeout menu now adjust to takeout because it's the only way to survive. And that needs capital to do, whether it's money for your website, whether it's, switching things around to make the process of ordering. But I think the lesson here is, again, it's an unfortunate opportunity that everybody's going through, but for what we do, our graduates, there's a huge amount of opportunity there to get money out on the street to people who absolutely need it.
I've been in this industry for about 10 years. Like I said, outside of a bank, I've never seen as unique an opportunity available as there is right now in the marketplace. So that you can really actually do some good for your customers out there. You can build a customer base in a little bit of a different way now where you haven't before.
Right.
There are going to be very few businesses you talk to out there who are not going to have a capital need in the not too distant future.
Absolutely.
And that's really what I found, because not only do I talk to brokers, we work with the brokers to talk directly to their borrowers, right? To really kind of extract from them what the real need is so that we can, build a relationship with them and not be transactional.
Right. And I know how you feel about that. I know you come into my office and you and I commiserate on, bad broker etiquette. And I don't mean to cast a cloud over what we're talking about, but you mentioned something of, there's a lot of brokers we work with, and I'm not going to name names. And some of them aren't CCTG graduates, right? Let's face it, they act as more of a barrier, right, to the client, and as opposed to an asset. And what I mean by that is, tell me about, I want to hear the Gary Lockwood rant, right? I want to hear the rant of, what do you see brokers doing wrong? And even CCTG brokers, because look, we train people the best of our ability, but the way they conduct themselves when they leave here is out of our control for the most part. What do you see? What would you consider a bad broker?
Here's what I would consider a bad broker, and this really does, you know me well. This is like sticking a pin in my ear when I talk about this. Here's the thing. If you don't have brokers that align themselves with the value proposition of the lenders and just use them as a commodity, you're going to burn relationships, and you're going to keep recycling up. You're going to keep recycling opportunities in the lender world, right? And eventually you're going to run out. So by putting out, if you educate yourself, as a broker, if you educate yourself to what you're doing and find the right opportunities for that individual deal, instead of sending it out to 8 to 10 places, that's the biggest thing right there. When brokers send out deals to 8 to 10 places, you could, people look at that not only as, okay, yeah, can it hurt their credit score? Yes, but also the lenders look at it, and I'll give you a little bit of an insight into underwriting, as credit-seeking behavior, which means, okay, if I'm going to give this person $50,000, the possibility that they're going to take 2, 3, 4, or 5 positions behind this is very high. So align yourselves with the companies, find out what they do, right? And don't shotgun your deals everywhere. And work with your lenders as a partner. Your lenders are not a commodity. Your lenders are a partner.
Yeah.
And if you can remember that, you will have good relationships with your lenders for a very long time. That is the thing that drives me most crazy.
And you know what I do, and when I get wind of some broker, I love these emails, right, where you're one out of 25 lenders, and they don't even have the courtesy to put it in the BCC portion. They just put it in the CC portion. So they're up front and telling you they're shopping it. And hey, I need an approval in 48 hours. Who can do this deal? And that is the quickest way to lose a relationship, right? I mean, we teach a lot of etiquette in CCTG,
Yeah.
how to conduct yourselves, but that I mean, I know in the lender community, people don't understand. This is a large, large world, but it's also very small, right? I mean, we all know each other. We all know what's going on. We talk to each other at conferences. It's a small world in a big arena, but it's the quickest way to kind of write yourself off. And
Good way to say it, small world in a big arena, right? We do all, honestly, we all end up talking to each other. We
Right.
want to have best practices because, while we're competitors, you feel like if something's good for one, something's good for the other, and it's good for the industry overall.
Yeah.
Right. So as a broker, listen, try to have a little bit, try to be able to see a little bit down the road and try not to see just what's in front of you. I understand the urge because I was a broker for a long time to be able to, yes, I got to close what's in front of me before somebody else does. And I get that. And you're right. Because speed and availability, capital in this industry is among the most important things to be able to get it out there quickly. But also, once you get that deal closed, just make sure that you're handling your relationships with your lenders in a proper way. That's all I can.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a few things. I mean, what's one of the best things you like working here? And you don't have to butter me up or say anything like that. But what made you come here? Because you worked for lenders in the past. What piqued your interest of? I know you and I have known each other a long time.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
you worked in different segments, and again, it's a small world. But what do you like about working here?
well, what I like about working here is about 6 years ago, I was introduced to the group. And you guys one thing I liked about it, honestly, and I know it's going to sound funny, I came in as a new lender. You kind of welcomed me in as if you knew me forever. So it made it as an easy transition to be able to come in for an opportunity that was a little bit foreign. I was like, how is this going to work? I'm going to be training new brokers who are not in this industry and a product that's, was a little bit more complicated than the product we have now.
Right.
But when I came in and I saw the buy-in and I saw the support and I saw the combination of efforts between the entities here, right? That is what sold me. Kind of how everybody is working. Well, everybody has different tasks. They're all rowing in the same direction, right? Everybody's got, and when you add the conference onto that, that was really, I'm like, you tie this all together, and it was a great opportunity. And there is nothing more that I like. And what's a big thing, as we talked about formalizing the relationship, the biggest thing was the ability to work with the brokers in a way, especially people who are coming out for the first time. You're actually sitting there helping them launch a business, right? So and that is one of the biggest things I like, and one of the biggest things about the opportunity. You have the ability to affect somebody to be able to open a business where they have a support system, which honestly I wish I had when I opened up my broker offices. And that is the thing that I like most about it. Listen, I've been affiliated with the group for several years, like you said, once in a different capacity with another lender. And regardless, I represented two different types of financing, but you know what was equally as successful at each of them, and that's because of the way that everything's all set up and the support that we're able to give the brokers.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I appreciate you saying that. A
Yeah.
lot of lenders, even lenders that are used to working with experienced brokers, as we know, the industry is, um, it's it's not there yet in terms of um, etiquette, right? I mean, there's just we call them joker brokers in the industry, and a lot of lenders I think appreciate working with our folks because they're taught the right way from the beginning, right? They don't have those bad habits that other lenders are used to non-CCTG brokers having, like shopping a deal and knowing your deal and understanding what the lender does before you submit a deal to that lender. So I think that's one thing that a lot of lenders enjoy about working with our folks. And it's interesting, you had the opportunity to be at our conferences. you know, our NACLB conferences every year. And so, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, you out of anybody you have a unique perspective on kind of our family of companies here. And
Yeah, like one thing you said, the brokers come out and they're trained on best practices, right? And the lenders see it. There's a lot of lenders here. It's almost an exclusive that they will not work with brokers who don't come out of our training group, right?
right.
A lot of them will not work with brokers that haven't gone through a training group where they have it, where they have best practices instilled in them.
Sure.
So I would say if you talk to a lot of our lenders out there, they're not just taking brokers they don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the conferences, honestly, I think I learned as much going to the conferences as people learned from me. You know what I mean? Because you get exposed to so much there.
You learn, and you've been in the industry for a long time.
I learned it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you an example for one, and like you said, not a commercial for the conference, but I met somebody last year who was in the factoring industry there. Mm-hmm. Right? He had never done merchant cash. He had never worked with a merchant cash advance provider. Mm-hmm. It was a simple conversation. Like he's like, you know, every time we want to do a deal, or a working capital provider, every time we want to do a deal, and there's this type of financing there, it gets in the way, and I don't have a solution. So I came up with a very easy solution, right? That if you didn't go through our class and you didn't know how to subordinate to another lender or something like that, you know, you wouldn't be able to get these transactions done. It turned into one of my best relationships. So I learned something from other lenders there. Like I said, I've been in this 20 years, and looking at it as a learning opportunity and being able to, like you said, get your best practices out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's never. I mean, people think that the learning ends with our training, like after the 7 days, but it just begins. Yeah, absolutely. It just begins. All right. Well, let me throw some questions at you, some off the ball questions. What do you hate about the industry? What do you hate about, I'd say, the commercial loan broker industry? And I don't know. I mean, I could tell you some things that I maybe hate, but you know, I'm interviewing you, so.
What do I hate about it? There's not a lot I hate, you know, because I really actually do enjoy it. But what I hate about it is brokers can look at each other brokers as allies if you know how to team up, mm-hmm. You know, and I think sometimes it's almost a mercenary type of attitude towards the marketplace out there where it's kill or be killed. That's what I don't like about it. And there's a lot of opportunities out there, and if you don't align yourselves with the right people, there are a lot of people who are not doing things the right way. What I hate about the industry, I'm going to give you one word. It's called backdooring. Okay, mm-hmm. When there's opportunities there and you're working with somebody else, right? That's the thing that I hate most about it. There are sometimes there are just people out there that you think that you can trust, but you can't. Mm-hmm. So I would say just vet people properly, you know. And I'm
just going to add, not just brokers, but lenders. I mean, there are lenders that are not credible at all, you know.
Yeah, and I would say the mercenary attitude of some of the brokers and lenders out there, where they don't realize that a short-term benefit to them is going to be, there's legislation coming down right now for our industry that's a direct result of brokers and lenders not doing the right thing. Right. So a short-term gain leads to long-term obstacles for us in the industry here. And that's the short-sightedness, I guess, is the best way that I could say it. The short-sightedness of our industry sometimes, where, you know, the quick hit.
Right.
You know? I would say that's the thing that drives me crazy. And that's the thing that I have the hardest time trying to tell other brokers out there. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that's the hardest thing you try to get in front of people.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we talk about that in training, and it's so hard to tell people that, listen, you know, prior to a couple of years ago, we didn't even have an advocate for us as an industry, where, you know, there may be certain lawmakers trying to pass policies that are going to affect everybody in the industry, whether you're a broker or a lender, and how scary it was when I would tell people how big the industry is, the amount of transactions, billions and billions of dollars of transactions that are facilitated by brokers, yet there is no advocate group, right? And so that's, you know, it's kind of unheard of when you look at other models.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I would say it's the biggest, the ability to advocate around brokers where they can come and get best practices and get some of this information all together. Listen, we need more of that, not less of that.
For sure. If you weren't in finance, okay, what do you think you'd be doing as a career? If you never were a banker, you never met CCTG, prime commercial lending, What would you be doing right now?
I'm going to give you my wish list rather than what's probably possible. So I have a big, myself, and I'm going to include my spouse in this as well, have a big, we're very much into giving back to our community, right? So if I were going to do something, I would head up or start a nonprofit, right? And I would start locally, but as many people that I can do with my spouse, who is very, very good at this and has donated her time to a lot of different nonprofits, where it would address a very specific need when individuals have an urgent need for something and can't wait for it to be done. Like a good example of this past storm, right? Where a lot of people's things were knocked out. The ability to connect with somebody urgently, locally, to fulfill some basic needs to make their life easier. So I would say to be involved in some type of community service on that level, to be able to do that with my family. That would be if I were going to do something besides finance, that would be it.
That would be it. That's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
What's something about your life that people wouldn't normally realize about Gary Lockwood?
Well, if you kind of look at me, right, I didn't find this out until I was 26 years old. So not only did nobody else know this, I did not know this myself until I was 26 years old. So I was born with a very rare medical condition where all of my internal organs are on the wrong side of my body. So it's a mirror image. So if your heart's on the right, on the left, mine's on the right. So every single organ, and so it leads to me living my life in a little bit of a different way, because there are some unique health concerns that go along with that. And
Tell me about one of them. Tell me about one of them.
One of them, you have I have to make sure that I never get heart disease is one thing. I know it sounds weird,
right?
But I can't ever get a heart transplant, because you can't transplant somebody's heart who's on the left side to somebody's heart who's on the right side.
Wow.
Well, I would have to find a donor who's like me, and there are very few people in the world who have this condition. So you have to take extra health concerns into consideration while you're doing that. So people like me have a higher instance of high blood pressure, have a higher instance of a couple things like that. So you need to be a little more diligent about that and a little bit more vigilant about that. And like I said, I didn't find out about that until I was 26 years old. So I don't know if that says more about me or the the state of health when I was young. But, when we were young, we had doctors smoking in their offices. So I'm overly surprised that they didn't find this out until I needed to get a chest x-ray.
Wow, that seems like a large amount of time to find that out. Well, here's how my dumb brain thinks. I mean, when you're at like a football game or a baseball game and you have the national anthem comes on, like, do people look at you weird because your hand's in the wrong place?
I do it like everybody else because I don't want to look weird.
Yeah.
And I didn't find out until I was in the hospital. I passed out, believe it or not, on a sales call once on one of my first jobs.
Wow.
And I went to the hospital and they were putting on an EKG. Mm-hmm. So they put the things on the side where it was supposed to be and nothing was registering. So that can't be, because you'd be dead if it wasn't registering. So that's kind of how they found it out. So it was just, that was interesting, and something that is definitely different about me than, and I come from one of the largest families you will ever meet.
Really? Okay. All right.
39 first cousins and 26 of them lived on my street.
Wow. Really? So did you guys just have block parties? I mean,
well, we were the block, so we owned 6 houses in a row all together, and our backyards connected.
Okay. All right. That seems like a hell of a time if you were a kid.
Something, yeah.
I've been asking a lot of people this we've been doing interviews on this show. One person, living or not living, if you could sit down with and have dinner with for a couple of hours, who would that be?
It's funny. We were talking about this. My family was talking about this the last time we were all together. It was a couple of weeks ago at a graduation party. Mm-hmm. And almost unanimously, it was my maternal grandfather. My maternal grandfather probably died 20 years before I was born. He is like the classic American story. Him and my grandmother came from Italy 100 plus years ago with nothing. Mm-hmm. It started a successful trucking business, even through depression and everything. Raised 13 kids, even though his wife passed when she was 39. So successfully raised 13 kids.
Wow.
Who were all reasonably successful.
Right.
And was able to keep his family together. Like I said, he had one house. He bought one house to the left and 4 houses to the right So most of his kids lived on the same block right next to him, which is where I grew up and which is where my family still is.
Wow.
So I'd like to meet him. I would have loved to sat down and meet him and say, listen, how did you do? You came from a foreign country where you weren't welcomed, moved into Westchester County, New York, into a very expensive town, did well, raised 13 kids through the Depression, right? And all of them turned out well. You know,
Wow.
like how do you? It would be great to be able to sit down.
And you know what? He probably didn't complain and whine, and he just back then they just did it.
They just did it.
I mean, they just did it. They didn't give a shit
Think
about,
about it. Yeah,
about
right.
the problems. They just went ahead and did it. The true entrepreneur. Absolutely.
You know, and that's someone, and that is someone that I would have loved to be. And you know, the one thing I would like to have met my father when he was about 21.
Okay.
I would like to have met him when he was young, just to see what he was like.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. My father too. That would have been very interesting. Although he probably would have kicked my ass. My father, I can tell you
I'm
that.
sure my father would have kicked mine. So, you know.
Well, okay. So listen, I like to do this part. Ask me anything. There are a couple of questions you want to ask me. I always,
Yeah,
I get various things from various people, but and listen, you and I have known each other a long time. But, you had to have been sitting there at some point and saying, gee, I wonder about this or I wonder about that.
Here's one thing I wanted to ask you, and this is not about business.
Okay.
Right? I know that one of your passions is classic cars.
Yes.
Okay. What is the one car that you wanted so bad that got away from you? Because I had this experience not too long ago.
Okay.
And so is there one car out there that represented you really wanted to get and you thought you were close to getting it, it just kind of fell apart and you were never able to do that again?
Yes. A 1959 Cadillac.
Any special reason? Did it resonate with you in any particular way?
It did because, well, growing up as a little kid, my father, without getting into a long explanation, he was a Korean War veteran, a Marine.
Mine too, Korean War veteran.
Oh, really? That you know what? I remember that. We have that in common. We do have that in common. You know, my father, we never really made a lot of money growing up. I mean, so I didn't come from a privileged family. In fact, pretty poor. But my father always did a lot of things to kind of hustle, right? And put food on the table. I mean, he was like a used car dealer. And I don't mean like he had a big lot. I mean, he had like a couple cars here and there. He did that for a while. He sold used firearms. So I used to go to gun shows with him back in the day. But when I was really little, probably 6, 7 years old, he had a 59 Caddy that he picked me up at school one day. And I used to love, like most kids were like embarrassed to like have their parents pick them up in school. But my father would always come with like these cool cars, like muscle cars. And like, I used to love it. I used to like tell all my friends, I can't wait till what he picks me up with. And he didn't have money. He wasn't rich. He just had like 1 or 2 cars he would flip. And one day he rolled up with a 59 Cadillac. And I don't know if you know, but a 59 Cadillac is the biggest fins.
Yeah.
So after 59, they went down, right? The company kind of tailored the fins down. And so I actually, believe it or not, was close one time to getting one that was almost like a barn find, if you will. And I was going to restore it. And, you know, in today's technology, when things hit the market, I mean, you know, I remember I called and I was literally about like 2-3 minutes too late. Somebody had already had stopped over there and given the guy a deposit and the rest. And so, you know, listen, we live in a pretty small world. I mean, not that I cannot go out and get another one, but you know, that car has a special meaning to me that I just haven't been able to kind of, you know, get my hands on yet.
It's funny, and mine's a little bit not the same, but I had a 1980 Camaro, first car I ever bought on my own.
Okay.
It had all the original stuff in it, original AM radio, everything. And let's just say I did not treat that car as well as I should have when I had it. Me and my brother had it, and we destroyed it. But it was a beautiful car. So I'm sitting at home, and someone's going to a car show, and on the back of a flatbed is almost the identical car that I had, the same color, same everything. So really? I follow the guy for a couple of miles, right? And he pulls over, and I pull over. I'm like, "Are you selling that?" I said, "Are you selling that car? Because, you know, come to my house now." He's like, "I'm on my way to someone who just bought it. I sold it 2 days ago."
Really?
I was like, oh, you know, so that was like the, you know, and I can't say I'm into cars that much, but that one would have been special to me. I worked so hard to buy that car,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things. Yeah. So that was something I was thinking about. I was thinking about that the other day. I said, yeah, I know Kris likes cars, and that
Yeah.
happened wasn't too long ago. That was probably was about a year ago. It was probably October
Okay.
when it happened. Yeah. One thing I always wanted to ask you. I know we've talked about how you got into this industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how you worked out of your things. Were there any times, because I know there have been a couple for me, there any times you considered, I can't do this anymore, or did you ever think of transitioning out of this or going to do something else?
That's a great question. That's a great question, actually. Well, without getting into, I mean, you kind of know my story, but at one point, I kind of tell this in class, but at one point, here I was, kind of started. I was let go by a bank a long, long time ago, based just because they got out of a certain line of business, and so I started a company, Prime Commercial back then, and I was I had a real dingy apartment, and the way I explain it is I had what I call a deadbeat landlord, right? Was very late on fixing things, very small apartment. And here I was, I had a few relationships, lender relationships that I was, trying to broker deals to. And I never forget it. There was a storm that had happened here in Albany, right? So in the wintertime, we can get pretty bad storms. And the power went out, and the landlord was late fixing the problem. And in turn, the pipes froze in the apartment. And so picture this, and this is before the days of like fancy voice over IP systems and Regis business offices and, all these things that make everybody look bigger than they really are. But I had a pen and a notepad and a phone. And I was telling my daughter the other day, who's 10, I was trying to explain to her what a rotary phone looks like. And she couldn't get that concept, right? That you had to actually twirl something around. Yeah. That's what I had. I had a shitty desk. And I don't think it was even a desk. It was like a makeshift table made into a desk. And I had a notepad and a phone. And all I was doing was dialing for dollars, right? Smiling and dialing. And I never forget, I was on a phone. And so here it was. And I always say, if I had a picture of this, it would be awesome. But I had a ski coat on. It was like a big down coat. I had a hat on, ski hat on. My hands, I actually cut out I had ski gloves on, but I cut out the hole. I cut out the fingers on one glove so I could actually dial the phone, right? Because you can't stick a ski glove in a phone. And I never forget it. So at night I stayed at a buddy's house, but in the day you could see my breath. It was so freaking cold. And I'm on a phone with somebody pitching them and, financing. And they said, and mind you, I haven't made any money probably in 6-7 months. Right. I was literally living off like one credit card. And thank God I lived next to a pizza place where it was $1 for a slice and a Coke. And I lived on that for probably 7-8 months of just pizza and Coca-Cola. In any event, I'm on the phone and the person said, "What's that sound?" And I go, "What do you mean?" They go, "What's that clicking sound? Your phone line is all messed up." And I go, "My phone line is perfect." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I hear a clicking sound, right?" So start talking again. He stops me and he goes, No. He goes, "Listen, I'll tell you what, call me back." And I said, "Okay." So I hung up the phone, called him back. We started in again, and he stopped me. He goes, I'm sorry. He goes, "There's just an annoying sound. What the hell's that sound?" And you know what? It dawned on me. It was my teeth shattering. Every time it was I was listening to him, my teeth were shattering because it was so cold in the apartment, right? So I never forget that story. But I'm telling you that because right around the same time, a buddy of mine, right, came from a family of money, and he was opening up a nightclub. And he wanted me to join him in that venture, and he was going to give me some sweat equity to give me a piece of this nightclub.
Would have been easy to jump right in, man.
It would have been easy to jump in. Certainly a lot more sexy. I mean, talk about, early 20s, meeting girls. I mean, yeah. I mean, who the hell wants to do finance? You know what I mean? So that was a very easy thing. But I said, I believed in what I wanted to do. I had a vision for what I wanted to do, to be diversified, and the rest is history. Now I have a podcast. So, yeah, for a brief moment I thought about it, but I wanted to see things through no matter how bad they were.
and it's funny. My moment was it's actually probably 3 years ago when my offices closed. We had one investor, and one day they just, for lack of a better term, ghosted us.
Mm-hmm.
And I carried it by, and they just disappeared. Like this.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. I mean, we found out what happened after, and it wasn't anything bad. He's just like, I just don't want to be in this business anymore. And it was for about 10 days. Right. And I carried it myself for about 6 months after that.
Wow.
But then I thought to myself, there's a couple of family businesses I can go in that would be completely separate of this. And I'm glad I stuck it out. I'm glad that I did not move into something else, but I definitely had those thoughts where I'm sitting there like, wow, okay.
There's a lot of this. And even in my career, I've had numerous lucrative opportunities to do other things than what I enjoy doing, which is finance and helping people. But at the end of the day, I love the industry I'm in. I would not trade it for the world. And I'll tell you why, because everybody needs money. I mean, in a down economy, in an up economy, and think about all the lucrative opportunities that were pre-COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Open up a restaurant franchise, open up a nightclub, it doesn't matter what it is, a bar. And what are those places doing now? Most of them are out of business. I was just talking to a friend of mine, a gym owner. Look at that industry.
Yeah.
You think people are going to go back to gyms, at least in the capacity that they used to? No.
What my 15-year-old son wants to do for a living. He wanted to open up a gym. I'm like, well, we're going to have to rethink that. But he's Absolutely. Like, that's what he wanted to do, nutritionist and open up a gym.
Wow. Yeah.
So go more towards the nutritionist side. Let's not worry about the gym yet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Nutrition. Absolutely.
I think about this company and kind of how you built it and how you've got all these companies connected. What was the hardest part of the ability for you to be able to see? Because I have to tell you, I when I take a look at it, while it makes sense, I couldn't. How were you able to kind of put all those pieces together between the training group and Prime and the finance marketing group, things like that? What was kind of the hardest part of being able to see how all those things fit?
Well, I wish I could take credit for saying I had this grand vision, in a day. And I said, wow, I'm going to own like 5 companies. And it all kind of came out of seeing a need. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to have the ability to see a need, right? And one of my mentors that I have read all his books and really studied him is Andrew Carnegie. If you look at one of the founding entrepreneurs of this country was Andrew Carnegie, a guy who came from nothing, by the way, right? And ended up donating I love his philosophy, right? His philosophy is, you get in, you work hard, you become super successful, you concentrate on an industry, which he did, and he monopolized the industry.
Yeah.
And he made all his wealth, and then what did he do at the end? He gave it all back.
Donated it.
Right? He donated it all back, which to me, that's a beautiful thing. Talk about sealing your legacy. No one's going to remember that you were a rich guy, but they're all going to remember what you did, for people at the end of the day, and his name still carries on today.
Yeah.
But the thing with Andrew Carnegie that I learned just from, reading a lot of his lectures and teachings and writings is that, if you want to, try to achieve massive success, look at the industry you're in and try to provide services within that industry. And at least I try to model that, right? Yeah. The finance marketing group, right? We just do marketing for finance companies, B2B. Yeah. The NACLB, the association we have, didn't exist. That type of conference and our association didn't exist prior to us coming on board. The training, right? So how do you educate people? How do you give them a proper doorway to get into the industry? CCTG, and obviously Prime Commercial Lending, where I started, with my own brokerage and eventually our own lending model. So, if you look at it, I try to take different corners that an industry needs, right? Different corners that an industry needs, marketing, and try to develop something unique within those corners and merge two together. And you asked me, how did I do it? It's not so much me, it's a talent that I have here. I would love to take credit for it, but I would be dishonest. For me, the challenge is finding the right people to kind of steer each company in a good direction. And, in the end, we all commingle pretty good. I mean, we all kind of pick up where each other leaves off because
Yeah.
there's so many, and like your role, you have kind of two roles, right?
Yeah.
You have to support, but you also control the working capital program to brokers for prime commercial lending. And it's finding talent that have the ability to do that, that doesn't have a one-track mind. Everybody here kind of multitasks, and I get an enormous amount of productivity out of anybody or everybody that works here.
Yeah, I mean, and I would say that you know, you talk about somebody that kind of inspired you outside of the industry too. And I mean, is there any individuals out there? Because I got one. It's funny. I've always been the guy who's learned more from people about what not to do than to do. Right. So I always have one thing. I always have one boss that I remember for years and years ago. I worked in the party supply industry while I was in college and now, and I've modeled a lot of what I do surrounding about what I've found that I don't like from other people doing. Is there anybody out there, like any particular people out there outside of the industry? Andrew Carnegie, I guess, is a good example of that.
Yeah, I mean, it really. I'm an old school guy. When I say I'm an old school guy, I'm really into, some of the other what I call founding fathers of entrepreneurism. Actually, you see the pictures outside of this conference room here that you walk past. If you look at the Rockefeller, Vanderbilts, you look at the J.P. Morgans. I mean, these guys were the founding fathers of really American industry, and they all kind of had the same story, right? I mean, pretty much all of them, with the exception of J.P. Morgan, came from nothing. I mean, J.P. Morgan had his father who was successful before that, but it's kind of all the same story. They took an industry, they try to dominate it, they try to make it better, do things differently, and and obviously the rest is history. I mean, they were very, very successful.
Yeah.
Um,
Back to the. Okay, I'm sorry. Again.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So back to the business. And how do you see things? And I'll give you my opinion on it too. How do you see things falling out? I won't from in our industry after things get back to quote unquote normal. How do you see the commercial finance industry kind of, the industry that we serve right now? Not from the broker perspective, just kind of from the almost, the outside perspective. How do you see that moving forward? What's it going to look like?
I think it's going to be a new normal.
Yeah.
I think, obviously there's going to be places that fade away. There's going to be industries that are changed, right? But in the end, I've always said this, you're going to need capital to survive, to weather the storm.
Yeah.
And then after that's done, when we all realize what a new normal is, hopefully a vaccine, right? Then you're going to see growth. And I think you're going to see growth for a pretty long time, to be honest with you, because people are going to get adjusted to a new normal. Some industries are going to come back online. I think people will always travel. I mean, I think hospitality right now is taking a rough hit, but people will eventually start traveling. And so, again, just like '08, right? When '08 hit and liquidity dried up, there was a demand for capital. You had to survive. And then after '08, what happened right around 10, 11, 12? Started to pick back up, right? And growth started to happen. So although this is a different problem, I mean, it's not so much of a financial problem. It's a different problem. But I think it's a problem that we know how to fix conceptually, right? We need a vaccine. We need to kind of adjust the way how we think about, being cautious, maybe wearing a mask, washing your hands more often. But granted, once all that stuff kind of calms down, I think there's going to be, like I said, we already see certain industries spiking. I mean, in terms of need, medical, another one that's spiking.
Huge.
Yeah, huge. Trucking. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are happening. People are ordering more stuff, right? I mean, we moved into this new office here, and there's still furniture that's delayed because like the trucking and distribution places are just bogged down. There's things we're waiting on that were sold out, right? So, I like to quote Albert Einstein. What I always say: whenever there's in difficult times, there's always opportunity that's there right in front of your face.
I was just going to say, I look at this as opportunity. Opportunity. I think that the better companies are going to rise to the top here.
Right.
I think that the companies who have been through this before are going to rise to the top, and you're going to see the people who have had the best practices, both on the broker end and on the lending end, really going to come out of this with the ability to adapt to different things. I think you're going to see a lot of fallout. On the broker end, you're going to see a lot of fallout. On the lender end, you're going to see a lot of fallout. There has been a lot of fallout on the lender end. A lot of people have closed up shop for good.
Right.
So I think that you're going to find the quality of lenders that are going to be out there. And I think there's going to be a little bit more demand for capital than there's going to be supply in the short term.
Right.
So I look at it as an opportunity where, like, do something good for your customers out there. Get out there and educate them and find out a way to help them. So I think I think the brokers are going to have to change from a little bit more of hey, we're going to have to be able to find out what the need is and really look more for lenders because there's less of them out there right now.
Yeah, and I think the ones that, we've been fortunate with CCTG. None of them have closed up shop. In fact, a lot of them have adapted the way they conduct business, being remote, and they're looking for more business.
Yep.
They're looking for a lot more business. So, and I think that's an important thing of how to vet lenders. We vet lenders here, obviously, before we introduce them to all our graduates. But there's good lenders and bad lenders, and there's lenders that are kind of shaky, and they could be here 1 month and gone the next. And you and I have seen that from time to time.
Oh yeah, listen, a lot of good companies kind of fell out there, and you're right. The vetting process for lenders to get out there should be,
right.
should be significant. You want to get the right people in here.
Absolutely. Well, Gary, I think that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you. I know you're busy, and I know you're busy because you're right around the corner. You're working on deals and
an approval that popped up for a nice dollar amount, so that's a good thing. So
no. So I won't keep you away from doing what you do best, but I do want to thank you for taking the time to share your experience, your insight into the viewers of this podcast. So I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on, and always happy to join.
Absolutely, and thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
All right, guys, that's it for this episode of Entrepreneurs in Finance. We had given you a little in-depth look at one of our employees here and his role and his unique perspective of coming into this industry. Be on the lookout for future episodes, which are going to be coming up shortly here. So thank you and have a good day. We'll see you next time. There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. People always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business.